Yes, we are live.
Thank you. So we're ready.
I'm letting people in. Tombstone, do you have a tombstone on the list for testifying?
Ano I make aloha kako. Before calling this meeting to order, I want to ask commissioners to refrain from using the chat feature on Zoom. All questions should be made publicly unless it is a computer connectivity issue. Aloha ho kako. This is a hybrid meeting of the Cultural Resources Commission. It will now come to order. Quorum has been established with how many commissioners do we have staff?
Sorry, hang on one second.
Okay.
We're having problems with our audio. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries, Kim.
Can everybody hear us?
You gotta turn your.
Great.
Should I start over, Kevin? Okay. Aloha ho kako. So before calling the meeting to order, we wanted to ask commissioners to refrain from using the chat feature on Zoom. All questions should be made publicly unless it's a computer or connectivity issue. The hybrid meeting of the Cultural Resources Commission will now come to order. Quorum has been established with 8 members in attendance. Today is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and it is 10:07 a.m. Pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaiʻi 2021, which amended the Sunshine Law to allow meetings to be remotely conducted online effective January 1st, 2022, the Cultural Resources Commission meetings will host a hybrid of online and in-person participants. A location has been identified on the agenda for public to provide testimony on agenda items and to view the meeting. This meeting can also be viewed live online. A link to the YouTube live stream is provided on the county website. The video recording will remain on the YouTube channel for those who are not able to watch it live. All reports and surveys reviewed during this hearing are available on the county website. Commissioners, please be reminded that Commissioners, please be reminded that only one person may speak at a time, and raise your hand to be recognized if you have a question or comment. I will now introduce the commissioners. Commissioners, please report if there is anyone with you. So aloha, Natalie Kurashima, Vice Chair, serving in this speaker role today. Matt Clark, Commissioner Matt Clark.
Aloha, Vice Chair, present. No one is in the room with me today. Thank you.
Mahalo, Matt. Commissioner Kilohana Hirano.
Good morning, Chair. Kilohana Hirano present. No one in the office with me at this time.
Mahalo. Aloha, Auntie Ku'ule Keakealani.
Hi, aloha pumehana ya kako o wau ku'ulei keakealani. Nobody home with me today.
think, mahalo, Auntie Bule, I think Kealoha is not here. Commissioner Scott Mahoney. Oh, I think you're on mute. Mahalo.
Yeah, aloha, Scott Mahoney, president, and no one's here with me.
Mahalo. Commissioner Nicole Louis.
Aloha, President. My mom is home with me.
Mahalo. Commissioner Aaron Stillman.
Aloha, no one's here with me now, but you might see my dogs or my wife walk through in the background at some point.
Mahalo. And new Commissioner Desmond Haumea.
Hello, my kako, Desmond Haumea, President here at the Planning Department Conference Room.
Hello, Desmond. Okay, now we will have the CRC staff introduction down at the Planning Department. We have Kevin Sullivan.
Hi, aloha, good morning, Kevin Sullivan, staff support for the CRC, present.
Mahalo. And April. Kim Tanaka. Aloha Kim and Jean Campbell. Corp Counsel. Mahalo. Okay, public testimony pursuant to HRS 92-3, interested persons that want to provide oral testimony may do so either at the time the board takes public statements on the agenda or at the time the specific agenda item is called. Members of the public may be joining in person at the identified public location or online via Zoom. Staff, please indicate if there are any members of the public wishing to provide testimony online or in person.
There are two present and more online.
Yes, more online. We can do the in-person.
Oh, sorry. So you said two present and a few online today.
Yes, ma'am, two present here in the conference room with us and several online to speak once we get underway the agenda item. I believe everyone here is present to present testimony for the agenda item itself. I don't believe we have anyone that wishes to provide testimony outside of the agenda item.
Okay, thank you. So the members of the public will each get 3 minutes to testify, and we recommend that if a person's testimony is for today's agenda item, as you indicated, Kevin, that they wait until after the applicant's presentation, and then we'll allow them to testify to the item directly. And then we'll let them in the Zoom room at that time, right? Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the business of the commission agenda item 1, which is to design the review, comments, and recommendations for the Kona 3 LLC application to amend change of zone ordinance number 02131 REZ 470 to allow for a 10-year time extension to condition I and condition N in the location Holualoa, Huiland, Holualoa 1, 2, and 3, North Kona, Hawaiʻi. At this time, I want to ask any representatives or other participants to introduce themselves and from Kona 3 LLC and provide the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning and aloha, Chair Kudashima and members of the Cultural Resources Commission. My name is Darren Arai. I'm a land use planning consultant assisting the applicant Kona 3 LLC. Joining me today online is 2 of the 3 members of Kona 3 LLC, and that's Richard Wheelock and Robert Williams. Unfortunately, the 3rd member, Mr. Roland Higashi, is not able to join us today. Also assisting us in our meeting this morning is Mr. Michael Matsukawa as counsel for the applicant, and also their archaeological consultant, Mr. Glenn S. Scott. Both of them are joining us online as well. Is it okay if I dive directly into a brief presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. This entire story goes back to 1984 when the state and the county elected to redesignate about 173.5 acres of land, which includes the project site as well as the existing Kona Vista subdivision, into the state land use urban and county single-family residential zoning district. Since that 1984 land use change, it has taken approximately 23 years to develop the 103 acres that now comprise the Kona Vistas single-family residential subdivision. It took 6 amendments to the zoning ordinance to extend the deadline for completion in order for the previous developer to complete the Kona Vista subdivision. Unfortunately, the first increment of the developing the multiple family residential component of this project was never proceeded. And the multiple family portion comprises the lands under ownership by Kona 3 LLC. The 7th amendment to the zoning ordinance is needed to provide an additional 10 years by which the applicant can complete the proposed 450 unit multiple family project that they're intending for this property. Kona 3 LLC bought the property in December of 2015. And before they could proceed in requesting the additional time needed to complete the project, they spent approximately 6.5 years updating archaeological studies, preparing data recovery and burial treatment plans for SHPE approval, preparing a cultural impact analysis or assessment, I should say, and basically undertaking a roughly 3-year environmental review process that resulted in the issuance of the acceptance of a final environmental assessment and the issuance of a finding of no significant impact by the planning department. As you well know, the commission's role in this particular matter is to advise various government agencies in carrying out their historic preservation responsibilities. And on this note, the Leeward Planning Commission, which heard this amendment request back in December of 2022, deferred action in order to seek out the commission's review of this particular project. Now, testimonies before the Leeward Planning Commission and received by the Cultural Resource Commission suggest that within the project site, there are the following historical and cultural features, one of them being the Holualoa slide, the presence of historic Malcolm Mackay government-owned trails, and of course, various archaeological sites and cultural resources. In response, the applicant did conduct a field inspection and 3 inventory surveys, the most recent being in 2021, that was finally accepted by SHPE along with recommended mitigation commitments. Regarding the Holualoa slide, an archaeological report found no evidence of remnants of a slide within the project site itself. Now, none of the trails depicted on a 1928 USGS map enters the project site, instead terminating along the railroad berm that is located along the project site's eastern Omalka boundary, with a Malcolm Mackay trail actually passing further to the south of the project site. A cultural impact assessment was prepared as part of the final environmental assessment, which concluded that there was no past or ongoing cultural practices identified within the project site. And finally, a botanical survey and faunal assessment was also prepared as part of the final environmental assessment, which found no rare, threatened, or endangered species of plants or animals. So in summary, the Deputy Planning Director issued his favorable recommendation to the Liberal Planning Commission for the request amendments based in part on these studies that were performed by the applicant and reviewed by the appropriate government agencies, including reviews by concerned organizations and individuals. And it culminated in a 6.5-year environmental review process that, as I mentioned, resulted in a finding of no significant impact by the planning department. So the extent of the applicant's efforts to date in providing information that will help inform government agencies and decision makers is resulted in material that exceeds 2,000 pages that has been presented to the county as part of these amendment requests. When the Liberal Planning Commission in December deferred action on the amendment request in order to allow the CRC to review and provide its comments, the applicant undertook a very exhaustive search for any evidence on whether or not there are government trails or ways transiting to the project site. And basically none was found. This effort was summarized in a memorandum of roads and ways running through and over the Royal Vistas project site that was prepared by Mr. Matsukawa and dated February 7, 2023. A copy of that report, I believe, has been provided to all of the commissioners. And finally, the Kona 3 team continues to provide Mr. Jackson Barrow of Na'alehele with information that it continues to collect that demonstrates no government trails or roads exist within the project site, including hosting a recent project site visit by Na'alehele and Mr. Barrow. So we stand before you today to collect your thoughts about the proposed project in its efforts to properly assess and mitigate any significant adverse impact upon cultural and historic features and resources, and to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, we stand ready to answer any questions.
Hello, Mr. Arias. Does anyone else from your team want to speak before we move on to public testimony? No? Okay.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, before we move on to the public testimony on Zoom and in person, we wanted to note on record that all written testimony has been received by the planning department staff and provided for the commissioners to review. And then so now we'll open the floor for public testimony and hear and accept any oral testimonies. Do staff go over the order of who's going to be first?
Yeah, I think we can start with the online testimony. We have online for that testimony. We can start with Simi McMichael, perhaps, and then we'll do Mr. Visconti and Mikahala Roy.
Hello, Kevin.
Thank you.
Aloha. Can you hear me?
Aloha, yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Simi McMichael. I am Kanaka Maoli, born in territory of Hawaiʻi. I strongly oppose this rezoning of over 400 units of this land. I did not realize how important it was until I read the archaeology, and it's really heartbreaking to see how these burials are treated and how all the others that are buried beneath are not being addressed. Most of the archaeology have been bulldozed on the top surface level, but what is beneath troubles me. because this land is so important of agricultural, over 500 years of establishment, you know, this is agricultural. The lands here are sacred and very historic. You have King Kamehameha I, and also you have Keakealani Wahine. We did a thorough study of Kahalu'u and Banyans, which is Keakealani Wahine, and reading all the archaeology back when. These lands are so precious of our ali'is, and that's why it's named Ali'i Drive. What bothers me is people come here and all they want to do, because it's such a great piece of properties, they want to desecrate and build homes, higher ends, but they don't respect our cultural, they don't respect the sacred lands. And when you allow these developers to come in, it's out of hand how they bulldoze and they dig deep. These burials are built so that it was secretly, traditionally built. So there's no archaeological monitoring, even if they say they do. And when they get to inadvertent findings and they're sacred, they don't stop. We try to stop it. I get threatened. I try to go to every hearing I can, and I didn't cross over to Kuakini Highway. I was staying on Ali'i Drive, but I realize now it is all connected. It's King Kamehameha, Keakealani Wahine. They all lived in this area. We have to help them protect our ancestors. And my ancestors are here. They were with King Kalakaua. They worked on the sugar plantation. And now I follow the rail because they're all here. There are thousands of them. So please go back to the old archaeology. You will find that many of it is bulldozed, and that's why you don't find it. So please read the 2,000 pages. If you haven't, then don't make a decision and just hold it to be a'ole. It is not pono. Mahalo.
So next we have Joseph Visconti. Testify.
You said Joseph Visconti next, correct?
Yes, correct. I think you're muted, Sir Visconti.
I apologize. I thought I was in listen only mode. I didn't realize I was going to testify. But I guess now that I'm here, I would like to say that I'm concerned about the density of the project. 450 units seems fairly substantial when we already have huge traffic issues that are probably going to take years to address, you know, the 2-lane highway and the increased noise factor. I mean, it's already very loud to the people that live up the hill. And so I'm actually pro-development, but I'm just very, very concerned about the density of this particular project. And I would hope that the Planning Commission would take the homeowners into account. And, you know, basically that's all I have to say.
Next we have Mickey Hala Roy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Aloha to Chairman Jerry Bell, Nicole Louis, Keakealani, Ku'ule, Keakealani, aloha mai, and to all others of the commission, aloha no. Look forward to meeting you one day. Here I greet you with my testimony as Lamaku, Lauren Mikahala Roy, Kahu, Ahu'ena Heiau, Lamaku of Ahu'ena Heiau and Hawaiʻi. There has been tremendous, I'm going to open I hope you'll keep with me here, because what I care to add is that there's been tremendous history that's been emerging, and on the basis of the oral history that's come forward at Kamakopanu by the ancestors of Oiwi, these lands are now proclaimed what they've always been, but they were always known to be this by just the great leaders of Hawaii. This is Kalua o Kalani, the second heaven. And these lands are now guided by Akua to be preserved as they are known as Pu'u o Kalua Kalani, the areas of some 40 acres between Kaloko and Honaunau. They are identified as a repository of the especially sacred lands of the ages for mankind, not only Oiwi. This is new information, and it must be looked at in the light of this new day. And I have submitted a large amount of testimony for you all to regard and take in as you must. So decline this application, as it calls for modification of existing land tenure in this area. Not only that, all the people who testify against this project, I agree with. It is not to be, this is not to be done in these lands of vital information for Hawaii and the world. So decline this application, and please please peruse the enormous amount of information, testimony that I've given forward to you today and up to today. If you have any questions, I'm here for that reason. I might back up and say in 2010, I received information spiritually, conveyances by the ancestors of Oiwi. This is nothing short of a story of a huge magnitude for the world. What's happening at Kamakahonu is the amount of history that's necessary for the world to hear. And this is a message from Akua by way of our cherished ancestors. In 2010, and what was 2010 but the 200th anniversary of the unification of the Hawaiian Islands by Kamehameha the Great, that contained and began the history of the unity of the Kingdom of Hawaii. Standing by for questions.
Mahalo. Next testifier, we have Claire Loprinzi.
I actually think she did not make it online.
Oh, okay. What about Perry?
I believe Perry
me,
is.
May I ask a question? Were there any questions of me? That's really why I'm here today, in addition to submitting my comments. But are there any questions? Because this is tremendous history for Hawaii Nei. I am the first Lamaku of our people of centuries of time. This is a post that is selected by God, and Ku'ulei especially, and Nicole. I address you as people Kupa from Kona. I would like to especially make my comments to you, but I'm here to answer any questions of you, Oiwi, especially members of respected members of the Cultural Commission. My father, the late Kahu and restorer of Ahuenahiau, David Kahele Mauna Roy Jr., is my father, who named me as Kahu of Ahuenahiau. And in these years that have come forward, this is the world of new history for us. And this is what I stand by to answer any questions. I was expecting Jerry Bell to be here today. And Ku'ulei, Nicole, if you have any questions or any others, please ask.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. During discussion, we may call on you.
Thank you. And it's Lamaku, not Miss. You would not call the Pope.
Sorry.
Yeah, my name is Lamaku.
Mahalo. So, staff, do we have any more testimony for today? And then we'll open it
I'm
for
here.
Oh,
Natalie.
Terry. There you go. Okay. Aloha, Perry.
Thank you.
Your
Thank
turn.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Lamaku. I so cherish your commitment and your presence here today. Thank you. So, in that regard, I did do some reading of the history of this application, which goes back to 1983. And what I have to say is, we're in a different world now. This is 2023. The kind of appreciation for Native interests in our country has altered since 1983, when these plans were originally created. So I think there's a fiduciary responsibility of everyone accountable to review these kinds of plans in light of appreciation of the Native heritage that's impacted by these kinds of developments going forward. So I think it would be irresponsible to not include this new appreciation for Native and Indigenous peoples with regard to the kind of development work that we want to do anywhere in our country. Thank you.
At this time, we've heard from the 3 team and all public testimony. And we're going to open it up for. Oh,
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry.
We have 2 present in the conference.
Oh, okay, great.
So you guys can come over here if you like, probably closer to the speaker.
I have a loud voice.
Yeah.
Before you start, you have 3 minutes. My name is Diane Blanchett Maddock. My husband David and I live in Kona near the proposed project. In 2022, the PONC, the county's Public Access Open Space Natural Resource Commission, placed the 70 acres of Aina on its preservation list to preserve and purchase. The submission entitled Connecting the Holualoa Royal Complex, an urban trail walking in the footsteps of our ancestors, was accepted by the PONC Commission as Aina to be preserved for historical and cultural sites, for public and open space, and for protecting the natural resources. The PONC submission was submitted as written testimony yesterday for your convenience, the whole application. Even though the developers have repeatedly prohibited access to the PONC commissioners for a site visit, interested commissioners were able to view this Aina from the public access points, and the commission as a whole was able to assess the potential value of this Aina from the written PONC submission and verbal presentations. As you know, the county is now in the position to negotiate with the landowners to purchase for a fair market value from the taxpayer-funded PONC for the benefit of all. You may not know that this undeveloped land, which the consultant stated was purchased in 2015, it was purchased for $600,000, 2 parcels for $300,000 each, which at the time was less than the purchase price of a residential lot in the area. And just a side note, the previous consultant for this project is the current planning director, Zendo Kern. Thank you for your time.
Can I just turn this way?
Mm-hmm.
Aloha. I'm the one she yells at, David Blanchett, who came over from Kona today. Thank you for, I'm so appreciative to be before this commission, because this commission is charged with exactly what we need to do here, which is consider the facts in this case and not get embroiled in the development itself. I didn't sleep last night. The winds were howling, and it seemed as if the drums were beating against our house. It was as if the Hawaiian people were rising out of their graves to tell us this is not supposed to happen. I've entered written testimony pleading you to hear from the experts like Lamaku and like Tom Pahoko Stone, who should be online here today, a descendant and educated person who has also worked on the Holualoa Trail, and also to hear from Jackson Bauer of the DLNR, because he said they were going to do more, and I heard the developers say that they did a site visit. I'm wondering if he was there and what they may have discovered. The problem is there were over 2,000 pages of documents here, but they all come from one side of the story. And I would like you to bring these witnesses forward and question them more clearly so that we get the other side of the story. Let's not be trapped by the Western blueprint for property. Let's just consider the facts and keep this focused. My colleague, Attorney Michael Matsukawa, who has on so many occasions fought for the protection of our Aina, and that must be very, very, very frustrated because he's now on the other side using his zealous advocacy for a developer. It must be difficult for those. What you saw was a carefully crafted legal presentation by him in the record, but that's not what we're doing here, not legal arguments. The developer would argue, first of all, he said that they considered the trails carefully. That's just not true, Michael, and you know it. If we review those 2,000 pages, there was never once a mention of those trails that crossed this property that showed up on the U.S. Survey maps. I, in fact, know because I'm the one that brought them before everyone in the PONC hearings and identified them as part of a group of people who were trying to identify these things. The developer would tell you that there's only one trail that was to be protected, Te Ke Alakowa'a, which is the canoe hauling trail, as it was referred to in the past, and it's outside his property. That's just simply not true. And he also says that even that one was protected. But Michael, if we stand on the top of Laco and we look down, do we find any remnants whatsoever of this trail that was protected? None at all. What we see instead is we see the monument to the modern Western property laws. We see Kona vistas, and soon we will see royal Konas in the same manner instead of the Hawaiian tradition. There's not a plaque, a marker, or any tribute on all of Laco to what was considered the most important trail. And your argument is that these blueprints for eliminating the Hawaiian land huis and eliminating any trace of Hawaiians were supposed to protect that trail as a major trail. And what about the heiau? What about the Ke Alakowa'a heiau, named after the same thing? Oh, you must mean the Sadie Seymour Botanical Gardens. I invite you to look at online at what Wikipedia says. Sadie Seymour Botanical Gardens, a nonprofit botanical gardens located on the grounds of Kona Educational Foundation. Sadie Seymour founded the Outdoor Circle to beautify Kona community. The grounds also contain an archaeological site. So here we are looking at these Hawaiian treasures being subverted into monuments to housing for Western culture, and we see them into Sadie Seymour Botanical Gardens. It's an absolute travesty. We know the truth about this. The UMI, as we showed in the PONC application, the UMI, trying to put this correctly, population centers extended exactly from the coast all the way Maka to Makai, up this mountain, exactly over this property. And the land grants track this same thing. And they broke all of this up with these terrible systems that existed, this blueprint for Western culture and property. So I don't want to argue this in Western culture. I want to argue it where it belongs, in the facts of the Hawaiian people. There most clearly was a trail network. And I believe if we can get Mr. Bauer and some of the other people to testify properly, he'll tell you about the alignments of these trails. And he'll tell you there's a mirror image trail on the south side of this property, this mirror image to the Ka'alakowa'a heiau trail, and it comes in the same way from the other side. The other one that's on the USGA maps, it's been there. It was there before the MUN transfers and all the things that existed. One last thing, we have to use our common sense. The Umi Kingdom was there long before this, and those trails were there long before it. To try to claim that it's private property that created these trails is ridiculous. And the reason they're deteriorated is the materials have been stolen and taken for train bed, rail beds, and other things like that. I would like to hear from those experts that I've identified on here, because those are the people who can speak to this. And I think you guys owe it to the people of Hawaii to hear from the experts on the other side for once, with 2,000 pages plus hours and hours of testimony by the developer. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Mahalo. Staff, can you confirm that all testimonies and everybody there to test has been completed. Everybody testified, staff?
Yes, I believe so, Chair. Thank you. Yes.
Before we open it up for CRC discussion, I just wanted to acknowledge Jackson Bauer from the Alahele and Rick Merkin from NPS Alakakai in the Zoom room. And they are also able to answer questions as well. Aloha Rick, aloha Jackson. Okay, so we can open up for discussion now, Commissioners.
Excuse me, Vice Chair.
Go ahead,
I guess my first question would be to address the last testifier's questions about the trails, and I'd like to hear Jackson and Rick maybe provide some input on what they think about these trails.
Hi, Matt. Hello, Commission. Thanks. Is there anything specific, Matt, that you have a question about?
Well, I guess I saw Nalahele had an opinion about the trails across the property. I also saw the summary provided by the applicants. I'm just curious, does Nalahele have a claim to a trail across the property, or do they think there's a historic trail that would be state property?
Okay, yeah, so the Nalahele program, hello everybody, I'm Jackson Bauer. I'm the Hawaii Island Program Manager with the Nalahele Trail and Access Program for part of the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, which is part of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Our agency was created in 1986 as part of Chapter 198D, which basically establishes us as the trail agency that the county, such as this body, and state agencies can refer to for trail consultation, shall we say. Among other things, you guys are familiar with some of the hiking trails that we maintain as well, but we also are that kind of consulting agency or research agency when it comes to trails and accesses. So having said that, sorry, Matt, just want to establish for those who aren't familiar. Having said that, I kind of think or our agency kind of thinks in kind of wears three different hats. One hat is, which you touched upon, Matt, is government ownership, because per the Highways Act, and I'll summarize here, any trail in existence prior to 1892 belongs to the government. So there's fee simple real property ownership by the government. So that's one question that we always look at. The other is historical integrity as an archaeological site or wahipana. So we work closely with, of course, Shifty and archaeologists and things like that to look at those ideas. And then the last kind of hat is access, the public's ability to walk across this landscape for whichever reasons, whether it be traditional practices or contemporary accesses, say hunting lands at Mauka or something like that. So those are kind of the three hats or three buckets that we look at projects with. Yeah, I mean, this project's interesting. There's a lot of, well, there's a lot of information, but there's not a lot of information at the same time. And what I mean by that is, I should give kudos to Richard Willock. He, one of the owners here, he did quite an extensive report of reviewing documents. That was very helpful, and kudos to you for that. A lot of map documents, deeds, anything that's on paper that's out there, I think you pretty much dug up. So that's great. It's a great resource for this project and just the area in general. So, however, we don't have good map documentation of anything prior to 1892, which is the Highways Act. So that's a challenge. But that's, I think, what the main point of Richard's report was. However, that's just, Palapala is just one way of documenting a trail's existence prior to 1892. As Lamaku Mikiala mentioned, there's oral testimony. There is accounts by folks that have lived there for generations. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. you muted yourself. Go ahead. Lamuku, we cannot hear you.
Thank you.
Hey, call Mike, say again?
You mentioned that there's no documentation for trails. I say that that's not true. You have Dye and Stokes, their representation of the ancient Heiau of Hawaii. That depicts the entire coastline, which is historic. Within the number of sites that you show, it's given that there are trails. And this is the predominant statement that elders teach the young ones, that say, when you walk the trails of your ancestors, something very profound happens to you. And this is what is carried on in households. If the state were to have followed our nonprofits' guidance to use funding to investigate oral histories, they would not have this dilemma today. But nonetheless, you still have the information that is well recorded there.
Absolutely
Thank
right.
you.
No, thank you for adding that in. That's exactly what I was leading to. Thank you. Yes, no, I'm sorry. When I say not documented, I mean there's a map with a line saying this is the trail you're looking for, and so that's what is not as what we don't have compared to what we do have very close to 1892, I will say. But you're right. That Palapala is only one way of doing it, and you're right. There's documents. There's also, like you said, there are sites within here, but I have to get to these sites somehow. And Lamoku had mentioned earlier about the movement of peoples through these landscapes are a given. And so those are all the things we kind of take into account here. We did do a site visit on Thursday, and thank you for that. And it was very interesting, kind of tying in what Lamoku said about some of these sites. The area as well has gone through a lot of transition over time. There's a lot of land change that's happened here, predominantly through the cattle ranching practices. So some of the walls that are documented here are labeled as cattle ranch walls, and in which case, in their current formation, may certainly be. But what it doesn't answer is what are those based off of? Are there, trails, walls, or curbing type structures, or a holua for that matter, that existed prior to these? So that's the thing that those questions, that those things aren't necessarily answering. I don't know if we ever will get an answer in a Western sense of documenting them. So yes, they do rely on testimony and piecing together the clues for this. So what we're looking at is, to kind of answer your question a little bit more specifically, Matt, as best as I can, is we have trails. Kevin, I can't share my screen, can I? Or is that?
Yeah, can.
Yeah? Okay. Let's see if I
Give it
can
a
do
try.
this. Oh, there we go. Okay, can you see this?
Yeah.
This is just some raw data of all of our mapping stuff plopped down. So don't take it too serious. It hasn't been, honed down. Every map's drawn different, but these blue lines are tracings of trails and roads from various maps of various ages. The orange are the rock walls, some of the rock walls. But this is the project area. Can you all see that, commissioners? Thank you. See my mouse? Okay. So this blue line here is what's found. I think, Darren, you misspoke. You said that it's not on the USGS map, but actually it is. In the 1928 USGS map, is this blue line right here. And very similar to it is the same trail represented by this other blue line from a strip map, 1914 strip map, which follows, I don't have that here, but right through where my mouse is going here, roughly following some of these rock wall alignments, is an old land commission award to Mr. Munn, which he actually purchased it before the Mahele. So these walls follow that more or less. But this trail shows it kind of going in and out of his very skinny land commission award through here. What I want to draw your attention to, and that USGS map shows like all the way down to the ocean, up to this is the railroad alignment, which obviously is a more old, but more modern than ancient, right? But what's interesting is there's more blue lines that continue up. And these go up. These are from 1914. And it goes up, connects with the Kulalai Road, and then continues up. In fact, in this upper portion here above Kulalai Road, it's already parceled out as a road exclusion, and goes all the way up to the Mamalohoa upper road, which in and of itself was based off an ancient trail as well, Kealaehu. So what my point being is that we can see a kind of continuity of trail from Mauka all the way to the shoreline Makai, following all these blue lines, stitching together the various maps. Now, so that's one thing to look at. The other thing is, and I should say that that's very typical of these Mauka Makai trails that have an ancient origin, because obviously people lived in the coastal areas, the coastal resources and villages, and you all know that Kona in this area was heavily populated and very important population center. And then of course, up Mauka, in fact, beginning in this parcel and all this area is the extensive Kona field systems, major network of agricultural systems. And then of course, way up Mauka, today it's ranch land, but would have had a huge and valuable koa forest for canoe logs and other resources. So very typical kind of Mauka Makai alignment. We have it there. We have Kealakova'a Trail in this blue line that we talked about, which is just outside the project area. Again, there are remnants of it, more Mauka, which is exciting. I don't know why the Makai areas were allowed to be subdivided as such in the past, but they are, the Judd Trail right here. So, and there's more trails that aren't even on here yet. But every few hundred yards, you have these Mauka Makai trails. We see this in Kona, we see this in Kohala. Everywhere the land wasn't plowed under. You do see these remnants of these.
You will not find these systems anywhere else, Matt. It's not Matt, excuse me, Mr. Jackson. Sorry, but he's saying that you will not find this, and it's not the field system, it's Mahina'i. And also, you will not find these fields, these trails anywhere else the way they are here. This.
Ramaku, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I really am honoring your presence and what you have to share, but we need to stay in order for right now, please.
This is information. This is for information, though, to be correct.
I know, but I respect that. I respect that. But for right now, let's let the chair and let's let Jackson share and let's let the chair call on you.
I'd like to correct these statements that are made. They're not true. Not all of them, anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're on the same page. You're right. Every district has very different styles of trails.
But this is the only one in all of the Hawaiian Islands. Right. You have not stated that.
Okay, my point being is that Mauka Makai trails that are in at least one in every outflow, usually several more, is a thing.
But not like these. But not like these.
Sure, the construction of these, yeah. Every district has its own properties, and that's a whole other topic of discussion that I'd love to get into. The unfortunate thing is the ranching history here has destroyed a lot of that architectural and archaeological integrity to determine some of those styles, unfortunately. But okay, so those are some of the clues to that. We have another clue here of this other Mauka Makai trail that is kind of to the south edge of the boundary of the subject property. It goes through here, connects to the trail that is well known near the Holulua Inn at Mauka, which is well documented. You can see the yellow line here, continues down. We don't have any, again, mapping of it down here, but again, we have some interesting rock wall formations, especially these double walls. And so that's something I want to talk about, and a little bit of these double wall formations. Generally, they're from the ranching, or what we see today are built during ranching period. Although double walls are definitely an old Hawaiian style as well, but these 4 foot high, larger cattle walls. In some cases, for example, Judd Trail, they were built because the trail was also used to shuttle cattle up and down up Mauka Makai as well. out for shipping out in the off the coast. So we see that kind of in this trail here, or this potential trail here. Well, it is a trail, but this potential area here where the walls are widened, this area we see kind of narrow double walls. So very hoihoi, very interesting clues here to trails that exist. And again, showing that connectivity up to here. The hail that was referred to is right here, Kealokova'a Hail, just a reference. The Kealokova'a Trail, or the trail to the sea as it's on the map, is this one here. So the same distance away from the hail as these trails would be too. So another thing I just want to point out from our observations that was interesting. And again, Matt, I'm just going to point out some observations. That's really all we can say at this point. But we did walk this area. Notice these double walls here start off narrow and then widen. They roughly follow this and this, roughly follow that MUN LCA boundary, but except up here it narrows, which is interesting. So it's pretty beat up. I think there was likely some early chain dragging that modified the land. A lot of rock, this whole landscape, the rocks have been tumbled under. There's still some sites, some clues left. Pretty beat up, and erosion and cattle kicking up rocks and stuff over the past century and a half. But a couple of things to note is there is some areas that are atypical of just a cattle chute. Areas that are, say, built up to make kind of a more level course. That interesting, and in fact, where this what do you call it? Where this gulch erodes through here, you can see where it's cut into this land here, and you can see actually there's layers, there's rocks that have been built up. So that's something interesting. And this shape also, let's just say it reminds me of what you'd see in a holua. Let's just say it that. Yeah, is there any, so that's kind of what we've observed, and how we would, I guess, taking the report that that Richard Wilcock had drafted and taking it further, looking at kind of the broad depth of stuff. And then, like folks have said here, there's also oral testimony of a lot of these trails in this area. Matt, Commissioner Clark, is there any, did I answer your question? Is there anything else you'd like?
No, that helps. I just wanted to hear your opinion on the trails across the property.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? Or actually, Rick, did you have any? I think Matt's question was to both of us. Rick, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate the time here, and thank the landowners and the county for setting up that site visit. I wasn't sure what to encounter. We went out there. I had basically prior to that looked at some aerial photos from the 50s that that we have in this particular area, and for the section between walls, site 3601 and 3595, which are the paralleling walls that are in the I guess the northern part of the property. It showed a nice path mirroring that. So at least in the 50s, there was still use of this trail, and it is a trail. But the minute we got on there, it was like, oh yeah, this is a trail for sure. But as Jackson said, it is also it's also a landscape that has changed through time, and the use of that particular possible holua and then trail, or trail and holua, and then possible cattle access. It's very evident that there was a lot of buildup, a lot of work done for this. It was elevated in many areas. It was kind of cut in some, very atypical. And as Jackson said, there was some cross sections you could see where there were big rocks on the top, and all rock, all fill material, and then kind of what we call haka stones on the inside, the fill. But there was structure to that cut. So yeah, the more we walked down, and when we got down with Kevin to a certain area, that's where we looked. We could also see the walls still on both sides, although widened. very, very similar to holua that I've seen in other places, like Kiholo, like probably up in Kohala as well. We've seen some that are like this, and in South Kona. Thing to note, I mean, I guess who I wish I had had out there was Keone Kalave or Tom Stone to have a second look at it, because it really struck me first as a holua and a trail at the same time. Going back to coming down that 1954 aerial, as we were driving down the road to the property, I was on an Avenza app, which is just a geo-referencing app, and sure enough, it was on that. We were on that particular old trail while we were driving down the road, and you could see it also at going up Mauka on other lanes that go Mauka with again bounded by walls as well. So these old routes continuing down. So I'm just kind of backing up what Jackson had to offer there, and again on the, I guess, on the archaeological structure side, trying to reinforce that. First of all, to me there was no doubt that these were trails, both of them. But then the one that's kind of central north could have had more history to it, and I think it's worthy of further investigation. That's it. Thank you. Unless anyone else has other questions.
Thank you. I think I saw Commissioner Louis with a question.
Commissioner Louis?
Aloha, Madam Chair. Jackson, is that, I noticed Bob recommended the study slide had taken a picture of a double wall trail. Now, is that on the property, and how much of it is intact?
Are you
You
referring
guys
to
do a site visit up to that? I'm probably referring to the trail that Mr. Gore Inaba talks about, walking down, and there were walls on either side of the trail. So is that on the property, and how much of it is intact? Did you folks do a site visit to that?
Yeah, are you referring to a report that was sent to you recently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of supplemental report. Yeah, so we did get to see that. That is, let me just share one more time with you. That's okay. Okay, so at the top of the property, here's the railroad alignment. This blue line right here is still intact, very narrow double wall. It's a narrow double wall, right? Nicole, is that the picture? Yeah. So what's interesting is, so even though this blue line is here, and again, I do not know why, but the county in the 30s, anyway, it was parceled out in the first tax map deeds. As you can see by the white lines here, it is no longer on paper. I don't know why, but anyway, but it still exists, at least in this portion here, those narrow double walls. So we did see that. And then again, across the road alignment is where we have the road, the other trail that and potential holua that continued down. So showing that continuity. So yes, that was correct. And then we did look at a little portion, kind of on a side trip right in this zone here. There is a little section of the Kealakoa that is remaining, but that is off property. The section, I don't know how far up or down it goes. And then if you go up Mauka, there's sections that are still pretty intact, I believe, going up even into the ranch areas up Mauka. Perhaps Glenn might be a little better at this to answer that. He's seen a lot of those sections. Glenn Escott, the archaeologist, but through the site property, not the same architecture, no.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if that portion of the wall is on the property, the property to be developed, and how much of it is still intact. So
yeah, the walls we saw are these orange ones here that start narrow but taper out. And then on this side, there are walls. For example, this one right here is a kind of your 4-foot high cattle wall. But what you can't see is about right along here, is a small, kind of deteriorated wall. So, there potentially could be more double wall type thing. And we see here is double walls continuing down. Not in the same condition though as what we saw up there.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for, I guess it's for Jackson and Rick, also for the Kona 3 team. When you guys have you looked into the Land Commission Awards, and is there mention in the Native or foreign or the Land Commission Award itself about trails in those documents? And then when in the Goro Inaba ethno-history or oral history about the trail that runs from Mauka, do they talk about it extending past Hualalai Road? In the packet you said it specifically said stop at Hualalai Road.
Yeah, I think the packet you're referring to is the one Richard Willock, sent. But yeah, I think Richard's research actually pulled a lot of those documents that you're referring to.
Oh wait, sorry, Jackson. I meant for that one I was talking about the packet the exhibits in your guide in the and then the petition is just that like the trail that goes from Mauka to Hula.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so so as far as the Land Commission Awards, again, Richard Willock did do a lot of extensive research on those. In addition, yes, we did look into those. Not a lot of mention of trails again in relation to the specific project area. But again, we do have documentation above and below. As far as the oral testimony from Mr. Inaba and the documentation of those, there is fragments of that are both mapped and described. I believe that's the Kealakova'a section. That's a little just south outside the project area. At least what he described. He talked about coming from the the church or school or post office. I can't remember off the top of my head. Up above and coming down. So following those alignments coming down. So he talks about that particular one. But again, it doesn't preclude the other ones, I would argue. We do have up Mauka the Holualoa by the Holualoa Inn. That's a well-documented trail and is intact going through that property. And again, that trajectory, that alignment would come down to the other through this kind of the southern edge of this property. But yeah, I don't have anything concrete in those testimonies. There's only the Land Commission Award that was in this particular project area that was issued to MUN very early on. Again, he actually purchased it from Governor Kuakini, before the Mahele. And so when the Mahele happens, he had to do testimony to basically say, I actually already own it. So the Mahele had to codify that in that new law, that new system.
Excuse me, Mr. Bauer. When you mentioned that this is owned by Mr. Munn,
sorry,
may I just bring this forward here? If he speaks about one person who talks about land ownership.
Hello, Mai. We cannot.
Sorry, Lamosu. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Natalie.
but you cannot. It's not.
I got it.
I hear what you're saying.
Sorry. So sorry, it's not equitable and it's not fair when you are talking about things that people do not have the same documentation in front of them to discuss with you. And first,
Chair has to take charge.
the Aliyah Parkway was not allowed here. All of these areas, you will find that there are oral histories that are well documenting these lands. Furthermore, these are lands you were talking about these.
I'm sorry. We're gonna have to
illegal
remove you from the
overthrow.
meeting if you keep interrupting and unmuting and not allowing the process to continue. So you're being forewarned now that if you keep interrupting, we're gonna have to remove you from the meeting. I'm sorry.
But
you'll have
it's not accurate,
again.
just to let you know. And the record.
That's okay. I suggest you write down, sort of take notes, and you'll have a chance to correct things, but please do not interrupt again.
Yeah, I appreciate Lamaku Migala's input, and I apologize. And yes, I implore the commission to allow her to give her time at the appropriate time. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I agree that there's definitely more testimony than just what's on Pala Pala. And I'm not talking about the validity of the land ownership or the equity of the land ownership. I'm just answering Chair's question about the written documentation through the testimonies.
There's
And
far
the
more
only
documentation
I know,
that
but
you're
that's
not
what
even
the
talking
question-
about.
I know, but that's-
You're not fairly addressing the other documentation.
I understand. I can only address what I have. If you've got more documentation, let's talk offline and share that. I would love to learn more.
This is what Mr. Matsukawa wrote about. These lands have been so well documented by people in the 50s.
Right. Okay, so Chair, to answer your question, the only, in this particular one, there was testimony that regarding the MUN purchase. And it did not mention anything about the trail specifically in that particular in those testimony. is the answer. Did I answer your question?
Yes, mahalo. And if anyone else, if Rick or the Kona 3 team want to respond as well. And I'm sorry to streamline this process. We're going to ask all of the testifiers to log off at this time and watch via the YouTube live stream. Mahalo. So if Kona 3 or Rick doesn't have any comments on that last question, any other questions from the commissioners?
Aloha Pumehana. I have a page of notes since I'm just trying to check things off as they're either addressed or spoken of. So Jackson, Rick, I can, or for all of us perhaps, there's much to be said. And I'm gonna kind of use your letter, Jackson, in how we sometimes gotta stitch together things. In your thoughts of having to stitch together maps to find alignments. So here we find ourselves stitching things together to whatever extent we can. So for that, we're appreciative, right? Of any information that might come in a myriad of ways that we are able to stitch together things today. So be it. Perhaps it's a sign of the times or the realities we are in. I think my comment is kind of stepping back to the Kuana Ike Hawaiʻi, right? When we look at this in the cultural context of things, there is no doubt, there is no question. Whether we have pieces of information or not, whether we got to stitch things together or not, it is undeniable that this place was a seat of government. For those and all of the reasons that surround that, the places, the place names, Keala ko va'a. When you look at just within the language and when you look into a name like that, ko, certainly it can be a possessive like ko uhale, my house, so ko ku'uaina, my land. Nevertheless, right, it's really a broad context of things where we're going to say he aloha keia no ko kona. There is a greeting and aloha to all of Kona, all of it. And so there's a connotation and some visual imagery that comes forward when you look at Keala ko va'a. It's the extent and it's the reach and it's encompassing all of it. So somehow, right, this is what I mean about the context of this, when you look inside through this cultural lens is today there's all of these lines and colors and everything else, right? But boom, if we kind of wash those out and you look at it in the entirety of whole, the expansiveness and there's no question about alignment, usage, trails, walking, heiau. But it's so layered, right? There's so many things that have happened within the decades and centuries that things are just layered upon layered up. So just returning right back to that operative word in Keala ko va'a, that we look at things in as best as we can in its entirety. But you had 3 recommendations in your letter, right? One was more research, and then for the development plans to utilize the trail corridors as pedestrian access, and then just a further consultation and discussion with Alakahakai, NPS, Na'alahele. So I don't know, not that I'm not appreciative of all of the discussion and testimony that we've had, but for me, there's just no question. And I just wanted to speak that and say, there is no question in my mind about trails, trail alignments, polua. You just gotta look into it further, kind of removing all of the other things that are there, but it's to see beyond and to see inside. So yeah, I express my appreciation for everybody and what they contribute, but it's quite clear to me. Mahalo, Anui.
Can I just say one thing? Mahalo, Kule, and I just want to say, kind of in response to the, I hope that the commission can ask questions to Lamaku. I don't think she's on anymore. Anyway, because of precisely what Kule just mentioned, my focus, because of where we sit in the state, I have to look at it from a legal perspective. I'm not a lawyer, but I need to look at it, check those boxes, look for documentation, things like that, so that the advice we give to you and any other policymakers is sound advice, right, or sound consultation. But that's only a part of the puzzle. And the thing I cannot speak for, and that I cannot advocate for, are those mana'o that reside in families that live there, have lived there, and have those experiences. So, when on my recommendation, it says, like you mentioned, it says more research. And so I think you guys done a great research on the Pala side, but it'd be great to hear what some of those oral histories are and get those, that understanding as part of the decision-making process. Lamaku mentioned there's several accounts of things. I'm not as familiar with those specific accounts, so it'd be good to become, for the decision makers here to be familiar with those accounts. Just like what Kule, if I'm representing that right, I think, yeah, I would implore the commission to do that, because that's kind of where my my expertise ends, so to speak.
And let me just add that the testifiers are in the waiting room. So if commissioners do want to ask direct questions, we can let them back in. But for the sake of expediency and efficiency, we just put them in the waiting room for right now. And they are and they have the link to the YouTube and should be watching that too.
Commissioners, any other comments, questions, discussion point?
Natalie, I actually do. Kalama, I got a couple more things. One is about the water, right? Because if we're looking again within the scope of us as Cultural Resource Commission, water is a primary source, just like Kane Ho'alani, the sun is a primary source of life. So just looking as best as I could, because I had plenty peppers, but just looking at that there's a need to provide the anticipated maximum usage, daily usage, and then that was to be taken to or given. So again, forgive me if there's more updated information that I never see, so please correct me if need be, but that the maximum usage of water usage needed to be given to the Department of Water Supply, and then they're gonna look if it exceeds the allotment. So again, right, plenty houses, plenty people, plenty water usage, and knowing that's something for our eyes to be on is the by usage, right? And here is a resource that we so depend on Kane and his abilities to bring forward the rains and the clouds and and have rain events, but that's our only source of Hawaiʻi. So I think there's a concern for me there. And gosh, there was a couple more things, but maybe I'm going to just look through my notes. I think it was about the, oh shucks. Oh, I got it. I see it in my notes, the PONC application. And that is, again, please tell me if I'm not in the most updated information here, but which I think I am, but they're asking for a sale of the TMK 7-6 at 021, 016, and 17. So what about that whole PONC? I think it was mentioned in a couple of the, one of the testifiers today, as well as in some of the written testimony. And then the most recent thing is that contested case hearing, right? That was in our paperwork on December 7, 2022. The United for the Protection of Our Aina contested case hearing. So there's a whole nother mea as well. That's kind of in the mix of things. So I guess some of that, the water question is for the developers, and then if anybody can let us know where it's at in the PONC situation, as well as the contested case hearing. Mahalo.
Chair, I can speak to the current PONC status. It was in 2019, our current director, who was working on behalf of the applicant, requested that it would be withdrawn from PONC. So at this time, the sellers aren't. We have unwilling seller for the PONC, and since they're here, they can clarify any of that as well, as well as Jean.
Yeah, as you say, I can. Hi, this is Jean Campbell, your corporation deputy corporation counsel. I'm also deputy corporation counsel to the PONC Commission, so I can give you an update on where that is. The way that for those of you who aren't really familiar with our preservation fund, the way that program works is the county has decided that it's worth setting aside some of our money to for the county to be able to acquire either a fee simple interest or a conservation easement over properties that we've evaluated and determined to be worthy of preservation, whether it's for recreation or conservation, cultural stuff, whatever it is. In our charter sets out the reasons that we buy these things. And the way the process works is the public is encouraged to send in suggestions each year about properties that they want to have preserved. There is a commission, much like you guys, of community volunteers who evaluate each of the suggestions that we receive each year. They get an application, they receive public testimony. Most of the time they go out and do a site visit if it's available to them. And then they meet and they score all of the applications that they've got. Anything that scores 50 points or higher out of 100 will be added to the list. And so what the list is at that point is a recommendation to the county of things that they might consider purchasing. So that list of recommendations goes at the end of each year from the commission to the mayor. The mayor then forwards it on to the council. And if the council member for the district that the particular property sits in feels that it is worthy of action or attention, it's something that we should pursue, that council member will introduce a resolution at council saying, I'd like to authorize the finance department to go out and talk with the landowners and see if we can do something here. And it's at that point, assuming that a resolution passes, then the finance department can have a discussion and see whether it's something that we can actually purchase. For this particular property, it was introduced 3 years in a row. The first two, is that right? I'm not sure it's 3 in a row. Anyway, it was introduced 3 times. The first 2, it did not score high enough to make it onto the list. This past year, it did. It scored a 53, and so it did make it onto the list. At this point, no further action has been taken. Councilmember Villegas is the council member who represents this district, and she has not introduced a resolution. So at this point, the county isn't able to do anything about this. And with an unwilling landowner, the truth is the county doesn't pursue things that have an unwilling seller. So that's where that one is. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Commissioner Louis?
So we still directing our comments to Rick and Jackson or to anybody?
Anybody.
So I want to direct a question to, or a couple, to Mr. Matsukawa. And memorandum on roadways running through and over the Royal Vista project site. Pretty good research, but I had a couple of questions that kind of confused me. Anyway, my name is Nicole Louis, and I am a descendant of Holualoa. My great grand aunt, my 5 times great grand aunt owned the Ahupua of Holualoa 4. She was given that by Kawikia Oli. And my tutu Kinimaka, her brother, took over not the property, but later he took over the children's interests in until they became of age, and then he was able to disperse all of that property to them when they became of age. But so I have a long-standing connection to the Ahupua of Holualoa, and I live in Holualoa, just below in the subdivision of Alikai subdivision. So I live below the said property, and I pass it every day when I have to go into town. But so page 19, it says in 1978, voters adopted article, whatever that Roman numeral is. I'm sorry, I don't, yeah. Section 7 of the Hawaii State Constitution. And then it says Kona 3 LLC has not found any evidence that the Royal Kona Vista project site was used in the past for native subsistence or for cultural and religious purposes. Nor is Kona 3 LLC aware of the fact that indicate that the Royal Vista project site should be open to Native Hawaiians for such purposes in the future. That concerns me because I know we're not the burial council, but the burial treatment plan states that we have access, and visiting our burial sites is a cultural practice. So I still visit burial places where I become a descendant of, and I try to do my best to keep up and see the condition of the burials and making sure property owners are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that is a practice. So to say that this place should not be open to Native Hawaiians for purposes in the future behooves us. So, and in the burial treatment plan, we have access to the burial. And I went to this burial. And I did a site visit to the burial. So that's one of my concerns. I think the wording should be changed. Second concern is page 20, as recommended on the last paragraph, as recommended by State Historic Preservation Division and the Planning Department, and archaeological monitoring plan for all initial ground disturbing activities and archaeological preservation plans for the railroad berm and the petroglyph site will be prepared and implemented. Now, this is what, is this a typo or I don't know. The former burial site where the disposition, burial, and associated burial crypts and features was located will be flagged for preservation. What is the form of it? Is this, are you talking about the burial site where the bones were removed?
I think the archaeologist can best answer that
Okay.
because there are two separate places.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
One is up in the corner and one is a different place.
Okay. So, and then it says the location will be monitored if construction activities occur near that location. Why are we monitoring that when we should be monitoring the other burial site? So that was just my other concern is, so maybe Glenn can answer that.
Yes. And to your first question, I might say, I did not intend to say that access for the burials are gonna not be considered.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
I was referring to the issue of the narrow issue of trails and roads.
Okay.
Access for burial purposes is
Thank you.
is outside that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make that clear. Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Nicole. So your question is about monitoring?
Yes, the monitoring of site 10012.
Yes. Okay, so that was a burial that was identified in a 1984 AIS, an archaeological inventory survey study. And that was done by Hal Hammett and I can't remember who else, but so they located it and they worked with the Burial Council and also Virginia Goldstein, who was at the County Planning Department. And so through consultation, they decided to reinter those burials at another spot. So they actually excavated and removed them. And they removed all of the feature and reinterred the EV and then backfilled the site, the area. So it's a former burial site. Burial isn't there anymore, but I agree. I think, if there's going to be work there, although I know they excavated a really large area. Uh-oh.
You're muted.
Okay, again, I know this is not the Burial Council. I'm sorry to have brought this up, but culturally, visiting burial sites is part of our culture, and because we are the Cultural Resource Commission, I think everything should be directed towards culture. Thank you.
Just so that the commissioners know our options for this topic, we can request further information regarding the project, including but not limited to an opinion from the State Historic Preservation Division, a site visit, more information from Na'alahele, as well as Alakahakai, Rick and Jackson. We could also vote on a recommendation on this project, which we'll have to have an opinion on whether this project is likely to impact the historical assets, or will likely have a limited but acceptable impact on the historical actions, or will have a substantial impact. And then if we ask for more information, we can table a motion until the next meeting or site visit, depending on what we find then. And the staff can help us coordinate a site visit if you guys are interested. So those are the options. Yes, Commissioner Louis.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, because I was going to bring that up next. If we could develop a subcommittee specific, or I don't know, to this project. That's something we can discuss.
Yes, I think in order to expedite a site visit and to not violate the Sunshine Law, it'd be best if we could create a subcommittee, and then we could have a site visit in the next month or so. Correct, staff?
Yes, we could try to coordinate that. I also wanted to just real quick interject. Desmond needs to leave, but we still have quorum. But I just wanted to say that. So Desmond, you want to say bye?
Before I leave.
Yes, please. Of course.
Do I?
You should be able to talk.
Oh, okay. Aloha, my kako. I just wanted to share a bit of opinion or comment. There's a new paradigm shift in education based on the Kumulipo, the Papaku Makavalu, that we should really focus on increased research, investigation, and observations. Many things have happened since the arrival of our kupuna back in 600. And our ali'i changed trails and boundaries and walls as time progressed. A lot of these names that have been mentioned haven't been changed. Each ali'i would change names to honor their legacy or their whakapapa, their moku auhau. So, a lot of the investigations should be updated. A lot of the research should be updated. I heard years mentioned 1914, 200 years. Well, I'm looking at 500 years. And we have to credit Mother Nature for changing the landscape. So investigation should, 2 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. We've experienced this through the Burial Council, where a lot of discoveries were made after further investigation, going deeper into the soil. But I just wanted to bring that to light, that trails could have been developed from hunters, bird catchers, people just wandering in the forest. Upon arrival, our ali'i made sure that many of his army, his ilamukus, his staff would traverse the islands, especially when awarded with certain land, to know exactly what was on that land that they possessed or were in charge of. But I suggest that, I'm glad to see Glenn here, Scott, just to increase, based on this paradigm shift in education, and I know Kule is familiar with that, the Papaku Makavalu, just looking at things from a different view. Because what we see through observation may not be what we see. It goes deeper than that, especially the spirituality of the Aina. And I leave you with one note. You can go to YouTube, Kyoki and Malia. We have to just, development is there. It is what it is. But to protect what is left should be the focus of what we do in Hawaii, especially what we leave for keiki. What kind of ancestors will our keiki become? Our keiki are our ancestors of kupuna in training. And what we decide, the decisions we make here will affect what happens to Hawaii years to come. And not for outside development, but for development for our keiki. And that would be my main concern, is how do we build the future for our keiki? I think development is at its standstill, especially in Kona, because the infrastructure is not in place. It won't happen unless further leadership are done correctly through a cultural view. Mahalo, aloha, auhi.
Thanks of the meeting, and we have to leave. But anybody want to make a motion for further action given the discussion today?
I motion that we for further discussion and develop a subcommittee to do a site visit. Am I doing it right, Natalie? I don't know.
I know I'm not experienced either. I think maybe staff can guide us a little bit on wording.
I should know. Oh gosh, tongue twisted.
Perhaps it's moved
Help me out here.
Create a subcommittee in order to have coordinate a site visit on site to the site. Do we also want to request more information from Kona 3 or from our trail folks that we have online?
Aloha, Chair. Just a
Aloha.
quick note on creating a subcommittee. My name is April Serpernot. I'm with the planning staff. The two options are to have the whole commission go out as a quorum or a subcommittee to go out. If it is a quorum per sunshine law, just as a reminder for everyone that we would have to have two subsequent meetings before a recommendation. One, the next meeting, let's say for example, April, the subcommittee would report back to the full commission, and then the commission could not finalize a recommendation until the May meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that point for everyone to understand the timing of either one of these that you all may choose or vote on today. Aloha.
Okay. So the idea is not everyone is going to be able to go on if we have quorum at the site visit, that would violate sunshine law, correct? And how much is quorum again?
Actually, if I can jump in.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jean, go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
you say, maybe I can help a little bit here. Jean Campbell, again, your Deputy Corporation Counsel. So you have two options. You can actually hold a remote meeting where you could take everyone, but it is a public meeting and you will need to invite the public, just like they're invited to this meeting. So it cannot be a private site visit with everyone. If you would like to hold a remote meeting and invite the whole public to come along, that is an option. It can be awkward, and property owners frequently do not want to have a site visit with the whole public invited in there. And to the extent that you may be looking at sensitive sites, it may be something that you don't want to invite the whole public along on the trip as well. So if you decide not to go that direction, the other option is to form what's called a permitted interaction group. And that can be a group that is up to less than your quorum. So it could be 4 people. And the way that the Sunshine Law requires that process to work is, if you want to do that, you would decide today on the scope of the work that group is going to do. And essentially it's go do a site visit and report back to you guys, I expect. You assign the members to the group today, and then they can go out and do their work at any point that they want to, hopefully within the next month. And at the second meeting it's a 3-meeting sequence. At the second meeting, the permitted interaction group will come back and report to the whole commission. And all that can happen at that meeting is they report. You guys can ask some questions, but there's no substantive discussion. They just basically report to you. And then finally, at the third meeting, then you are allowed to have a discussion and make a decision based on that report. So if you decide to do the site visit with a permitted interaction group, I think what April's reminding you of is you would form the group today, they'd go out there, do their site visit, they'd come back at your next meeting, they're going to report. And then at the subsequent meeting after that, then you can discuss and take action on their report.
Got it. Mahalo.
Sure.
Okay. Can we get a motion to form a permitted interaction group of 4 or less of us? I think Aaron, were you motioning?
Hi, it's Commissioner Spielman here. I'd like to make a motion to have the PIC, to form the PIC, and I'd like to volunteer to be on that. That's not part of the motion, sorry. The motion is to form the PIC and have a site visit.
Mahalo. Can I get a
Commissioner
second?
Hirano, second.
Mahalo, Commissioner Hirano. All those in favor, raise, or do we need a verbal, or can we raise hands?
Roll call, please, Chair.
Okay, roll call, Auntie Pu'ule,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney,
Sorry. Aye.
and myself, I think that's all. So committee formed. Do we have volunteers to be on the committee? Commissioner Kekealani, Commissioner Louis, Commissioner Snowman. I'll also volunteer in Kona, so it's easy for me. And so staff will start to organize the day for us to go out, and then we will report back to the commission at our next meeting. Staff?
Yeah. Chair, will you, I think we still have 2 more people that need to share their yay or nay on that motion.
Oh, sorry. I mean, Aaron and Kilo. Sorry, I thought that counts as both. Commissioner
Nicole.
Kilohana. Oh, and Nicole. Sorry.
Aye.
Aaron
Aye.
and Nicole.
Aye.
Mahalo. And then we had the 4 volunteers as Aaron, Ule, and Nicole, and myself. Any other motions for that agenda item that anyone wants to bring up? Okay. Okay. So I think we can mahalo the teams that have been here for this agenda item, and thank you for your time, and you're free to go.
Thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, can I respectfully ask for a bio break? A quick bio.
Yeah,
Okay, like 5
absolutely.
minutes. Okay, mahalo. we're moving on to just regular CRC business. So Michael and Richard, if you're free to leave. If you'd like. Oh, so how do I? Oh, I think I've been tasked with closing out that agenda item. How do I do that?
You probably just did, just
Oh.
formally, closing it, we're moving on, so that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We closed out
Thanks.
agenda item 1, and we're moving now on to agenda item 2. Thank you, Kevin. Agenda item 2 is a staff update of the current CLG funding cycle. So Kevin, if you could provide some information for us.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have not heard back from SHPD regarding the CLG grant for the Volcano Village survey work, other than it has been transmitted to National Park Service and they are reviewing it. I hope to hear soon. I'm staying on top of SHPD for answers, and if we do get that award, we'll enter into a sub-grant agreement with SHPD and proceed. So that's the update. Still waiting on them. Thank you.
Close out that agenda item, number 2, and move on to number 3, update from the planning subcommittee of the CRC, which is, Hilo.
Thank you, Chair. The planning subcommittee for the CRC has not had a chance to meet, and with the change of Commissioner Bell terming out, we need to have a discussion about if we want to put someone else into her place on the planning subcommittee. And the other thing is, Kevin, I'm not sure, do you have access to any of the things that Kamuala originally set up for us? If not, I'll try and look for it and get you added onto that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I do, but it may be worth you and I connecting to make sure that they're the same. Everything's
Okay.
same.
All right.
Okay.
So,
Do that
yeah, so
shortly.
going back to my first item, if there is someone who would like to take former Commissioner Bell's place on the subcommittee, we would be open to having in another member.
Who is currently on the planning subcommittee, Kilo?
I believe it is myself, Matt, and you, Chair.
Okay, so Matt and myself, anybody else would like to volunteer to be on the planning committee? And maybe Kilo, you can give like a 1 sentence of what that kuleana entails.
So we've been tasked with reviewing the duties of the commission, and especially after our previous conversation, what is the extent of our role? And based off of what was shared in 2015 and then a revised one that came out in 2020, we did an initial crosswalk of those, and then come up with recommendations to bring to the larger commission for approval on that.
Aloha, Chair. Also, members of the public can be part of a subcommittee. So if Auntie Jerry wanted to continue on with the subcommittee as a member of the public, she could. So you could reach out to her separately and see if that's something that she may have interest in.
Okay.
Just wanted to offer that.
Thanks.
I guess if anybody from the commission, does anyone want to volunteer? If not, we can also ask Auntie Jerry.
And we don't have to have 4, right? 4 is just the max that we can have on this subcommittee because of sunshine.
Oh, Scott, were you volunteering?
Yeah, I volunteer for that.
Great.
Mahalo.
How do we meet though? I mean, are you the full for that?
We were so with everything that's going on, we really haven't met since I want to say like October maybe, but we can set them up through with the office, and Kamuela was helping us do that earlier. That's why I was asking Kevin if he had those our previous documents so that we could make sure we could coordinate around that. And so Kevin and I will meet offline to make sure we have all the same things.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Mahalo, Kilo. I think we can conclude agenda item number 3 and move on to number 4, update from the investigative subcommittee of the CRC, which is Matt.
Aloha, Vice Chair. We have not met either in the investigative subcommittee. I would actually also like to work with Kevin offline to maybe set up a regular meeting time, which would be helpful. And I believe we still have all of our members here from the original group. We've lost our community members. They have stepped aside, but I would like to get back to regular meetings, hopefully next month. I do have an update on the implementation of the preservation plan at Laloa Beach Park. The county has actually been working diligently on that. They've done most of the vegetation clearing from the heiau. They've removed the old parking lot from within the preservation area. It's actually starting to look quite nice, and I think the next step they need is to move a couple of things around and find a community group to help steward the site. So maybe that's something we can discuss at our next meeting. If you guys get a chance to go by, it's still surrounded by construction fencing, but the vegetation removal has gone really well, and there's been archaeological monitoring going on the whole time as well. Thank you.
Hey, Matt, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Matt, who's on that subcommittee? Can you remind?
I believe you are, and Ku'ule, and I believe Natalie as well, yeah.
Thank you.
Matt, mahalo for the update.
I live not too far from La'aloa, and I pass by every now and then. The last time I passed by, I was monitoring down at Kahaluka. Yeah, so it was coming along rather nice. Okay, I better not say anything.
Great. So Matt will work offline with Kevin to get on the same page, and we'll get back to a regular cadence of meetings with the investigative subcommittee as well, so we can close out that agenda item and move on to administrative matters. The first administrative matters is the election of officers, chair and vice chair. I say I do not want to be chair. I love working with you guys. I don't feel, as you can see, I'm not the best at this. So if someone else could be chair, that would be great. I can stay on as vice chair if that's helpful, but I don't have to. So anyway, open the floor for nominations for a chair, and members are free to nominate themselves as well.
Don't anyone be bashful.
Madam Vice Chair, sorry, did you say nominate for all positions, or was it just the two? I didn't catch that bit.
Yeah, we just have a chair and a vice chair. I thought you were volunteering, so
Sorry, and the terms are for the year, right? Or is it until someone terms out?
Terms are for the calendar year, and best to just start with one position, so say nominations for chair. And then once we handle one, we can address the next one.
Sounds good. Any more questions before we move on? Oh, yes, Aaron?
Who's not here that we can nominate?
Kealoha. Kealoha's not here. Kealoha Kimi.
One thing I will offer, in case it makes it any more tempting for anybody, is the staff does do a good job of providing you with notes and script and whatnot to help to run the meeting. You're not expected to just memorize that. And both the staff and I are available anytime if you have questions. So you're not just totally out on your own, if that's helpful.
I nominate Aaron.
For chair. right?
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Aaron Spillman has been nominated for chair. Any other nomination?
Can I nominate 3 people?
We need, and we do need seconds on any nomination.
I'll second the nomination of Aaron. And then Nicole, you had a second nomination?
Holy.
And we want to make sure Aaron is willing as well.
Aaron, are you willing?
You know, I have a lot going on, but I a 1-year commitment on top of things. I can read a script, so I'll be relying on staff for sure. Thank you. I'd be honored. Thank you. Thank you very much, Auntie.
Okay, and also Auntie Ku'ule, you've been nominated, and I'll second that too, I guess. And verbal acceptance of, are you willing to serve?
Aole, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Aole Hiki. I would be so wonderfully like, sure, but reality, Aole Hiki. But thank you, cousin, for the nomination, Ekeaka, but I graciously and humbly scoot out.
We understand. We understand. Mahalo. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, we can have a vote, or do we do the nominations of the vice chair first? Vote.
Vote.
Vote. Do I have to do roll call? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do a roll call on vote for chairman for Aaron Spillman as chairman. Commissioner Clark?
Yes, I vote for Commissioner Spillman.
Mahalo. Commissioner Hirano?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillman?
Aye.
Commissioner Louis? Oh, I see Nicole.
Aye.
Commissioner Keakealani?
Aye.
And Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
And myself, aye. That's everybody, correct? Yay! So it's a unanimous vote in favor of our new chair, Chair Spillman. Any nominations for vice chair? Oh, yes.
Can I nominate you, please, because you volunteered to be vice chair at the beginning? Can we just nominate you for the vice chair? Thank you.
Sure.
I second.
Sure. Mahalo. Any other nominations? Okay, roll call vote on myself for vice chair. Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Hirano?
Aye.
Commissioner Stillman?
Aye.
Commissioner Louis?
Aye.
Commissioner Keakealani?
Aye.
And Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
I will say aye as well. Okay. Mahalo. Okay, so we'll close out election of officers. And the second order of administrative matters is the approval of the minutes from the November 9th, 2022 meeting by Kim Tanaka. Mahalo. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Cultural Resources Commission meeting held on November 9th, 2022?
I move that we approve the minutes from the November meeting of the Cultural Resources Commission.
I said yes. Oh, sorry.
Oh, seconded. No, seconded by Commissioner Louis. Perfect. Okay, and then it was moved by Commissioner Hirano and seconded by Commissioner Louis that the minutes of the November 9th, 2022 meeting be approved as circulated, and we can do a hand vote for this one. So all those in favor, please raise your hands. So everybody, all those opposed, mahalo. Okay, so we'll close out that agenda item. And finally, the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. Is there any other announcement, staff?
We can, I think we could also tentatively confirm the Wednesday, May 10th meeting, if we wanted to.
Sorry, what was that second part?
So we could also tentatively schedule the Wednesday, May 10th meeting.
Oh, okay, Wednesday, May 10th.
Yeah, just to be safe.
Okay, so April 12th and Wednesday, May 10th. Get those two on our calendars. Got it. Okay, so we can close out that agenda item, and we can move to adjournment. This concludes the items on the agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Hello, Commissioner Stillman. All of those in favor can say aye.
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 Okay, I think this meeting is adjourned. Mahalo, everyone, for your help and support.